We are now live on YouTube. Look at that. Isn't that special?
Too bad Treg's not here.
It's a shame.
Yeah.
He's all pretty and shit.
Yeah, he'd be flexing hard right now.
So hard. Be showing off his metallic cock and balls on his wall. The two bronze medals and with a Conan sword in between.
Yeah.
All right. And now that we're set up on the live, we will get started on recording this show as per normal. And welcome to episode 290 of Habs Unfiltered. I'm your host, Blaine Putvey, and I'm joined by my co-host, Matt Smith.
Good evening.
Treg Wilson is not available as he is out on location, knocking people over the head and dragging them into a cave so they can join the forces.
It's pretty much how it happened. That's how it happened with me. So
I think that's what they call recruiting.
I think so, yeah.
You know, forcing people to take, a living wage and benefits and, but they'd have to work all day.
Yeah. Like you did today.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, via Zoom.
Sometimes, sometimes the work, it's not worth it.
No.
Put it that way. But hey, at least I have a job.
Absolutely. That's the most important thing.
It is. Most people would have fired me by now, but not the king. Felt bad. His mom didn't fire me for all those years, so he feels like, he's kind of got to let it go.
Yeah. If mom let it go,
Yeah.
How bad can he really be?
10 minutes alone with me, he'll find out.
Yeah.
So, this is not right. We need to fire him.
Yeah.
That's why Treg's out doing the recruiting. They're like, we got to put our best face forward.
Absolutely. I'm sure he's flexing hard on those potential recruits too. He's just just like, look what the military gives you. And then he just brings out the guns.
And every single one of them just looks down at him and say, do they sell you lifts too?
We love you, Treg. We love you.
Even though you're short. Treg's our muscular Smurf. He's hefty Smurf.
He's gonna hear this show and he's just gonna be punching air.
Until he gets out here and he's just gonna be punching my head.
Yeah, probably.
Once he finds a ladder.
Oh my. Poor guy.
He's not here to defend himself, which makes it funnier.
Yeah.
All right, so we're now, this is going to be our first episode that we're going to put out through Megaphone. So we have switched over from Anchor to the megaphone.fm app. It should be an interesting thing to see. We are now joining, I can announce that now, we're joining Prior Media, and they're providing us with hosting services. They're going to be giving us some production help. This is going to be a staged event. So basically, in stages, they're going to add little bits until we finally start looking and sounding like actual professionals. We hope.
I might have to put a green screen up behind me.
I mean, there's limits to our professionalism.
Yeah.
To be honest.
That's true.
They knew what they were hiring when they brought us on.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, they're going to be providing us a little bit of extra help. They're going to be giving us a larger platform, helping us get the show out to more people, so that we can add to the community that's joined us already and interact with us on a daily basis, which we truly enjoy.
Absolutely. And it is really, it's a thriving community. It's building. Like we're seeing people jump into podcasting and getting into the media and everything. And it's great to see. And we made a lot of great connections over the years with those people.
Chili Pepper, Beth, Dave, the people over at Locked On Canadians, Scott and Laura, Habs Tonight, the Raw Knuckles podcast, all these different shows, all these different podcasts, all getting together and helping each other out and building a larger community.
Absolutely.
And really, I really enjoy that part of it.
Yeah,
Which
and the
is
community is really stronger when everyone works together and everyone
Yeah.
is kind of going towards the common goal of getting the best product out there, and working together to we can say all we want, hey, we're the best show, we're this, but it's great to have other contributors on and see what they bring to the table, and I think that it just builds on our show that much more, and it gets their name out there, it gets our name out there, and it's just it makes these bonds. And then we see these people when we go into Montreal, or when we go to we're on site at the draft or anything like that, and these connections are they're special. They really are.
Yeah, they're long lasting. I mean, we have events that we set up, and we go visit these people, and we have a great time. We've made really good friends at this, and anyone who believes that they're in a competition and that everyone should watch only their show and no one else's is delusional. Everyone that listens to us clearly listens to several other podcasts, television shows. They don't narrow their view to just three dummies on one podcast.
Right.
They widen their view to a bunch of dummies on several podcasts.
And every now and then a dummy like one of us goes on to one of their podcasts.
Well, whenever they hit the bottom of their list, they're like,
yeah,
all right, we'll invite one of them.
Yeah.
That's the way we want to do things. That's what Crier Media is going to allow us to do. That they're not going to get involved in how we run the show or who we talk to. They're not going to be overbearing. They're just going to give us tools. They're going to help us with bringing in more people for guest appearances or anything that we need, that we say that we require. They will do their best to help us, and that's really why we felt that we should sign on with them on a temporary basis for now. We'll see how it goes, but I have a very, very good feeling about this collaboration.
As do I.
Now that that's out and it's now official, today's episode, the 290th episode of Habs Unfiltered. I say that because I'm kind of so I'm just happy to say 290. We're almost at 300. That'll be a big episode, maybe. But for this one, we will cover a little bit of a game recap with the Penguins game on Saturday. There's going to be a game against the New Jersey Devils. As we record, it's the 14th of November. They'll be playing New Jersey tomorrow on Tuesday on the 15th of November. And we'll talk a little bit about some trade rumors that are running around. So without further ado, let's kick it off with the Penguins game on Saturday night. Sid the Kid with his walker and his teammates rolled into Montreal looking for a big win, and they didn't get it.
No, they ran into a tougher opponent than what I think they expected. And yes, the Penguins were playing on a back-to-back where they had just beat the Leafs the night prior. But they had all their players out there, and they had Tristan Jarry in net. It was a back and forth game from start to finish.
And I know there was a lot made up of with Suzuki's shooting percentage and all of this nonsense online, that there's been a back and forth, especially with Treg and some people at the Athletic.
Yeah.
And I find it entertaining, but at the same time, you can complain that Suzuki's outperforming based on his shooting percentage.
Right.
But he's shooting a lot, which means some of them are going to go in.
I went 25% on Saturday night. He's got a season average of 27. It's kind of an outlandish number right now, but we're 15 games into the year, right? We haven't played 82 just yet.
That's true. And yes, he's on a bit of a heater, which there's going to be ups and downs, but at the same time, that shooting percentage is also indicative of the fact that his shot selection has been excellent thus far.
Yeah.
His shots are coming from high danger zones.
Yeah, and we're seeing he always was a player that was confident carrying the puck and being able to slow the game down. And we're seeing that with Caulfield as well this year. It's not just hey, it's on my stick, I got to get rid of it.
Yeah.
We're seeing him come to the zone and then slowing the game down. And with Suzuki becoming, say, more of a threat to the opposition, it's creating space for other players. And I think that's why we're seeing the success that this line is having. And Doc moving up to that line, he's been kind of, I'm not gonna say the missing piece, but so far he's been really the best piece that they've been able to add to it in some time.
Oh, absolutely. And this game against the Penguins, it wasn't that the Canadians just got lucky as either. They outshot the Penguins 51-35.
Yeah.
Granted, the Penguins did take a lead, and they had a pretty good lead, a couple of goals, but the Canadians came back. They found a way. They got some goals. The Monahan goal, especially the one right in front of the net on that power play.
Yeah.
Those kinds of greasy little goals. That's not that gives him 100% shooting percentage.
Right.
But where did he shoot from?
Yeah, they all count. They all count at the end of the day, right?
They all count. You can't just say, well, the shooting percentage is too high. You do have to look at where these players are when they're taking these shots. Yeah, that Monahan goal gives them 100% shooting percentage on there.
Right.
But it was greasy as hell.
Yeah.
And it was one of those, you just tap it in. If you miss that, then you got problems.
Yeah. Like even Caulfield took 6 shots in that game.
Yes.
And he scored a goal. But that's still 16.7%.
So when you think about it, usually a general rule of thumb is 1 goal for every 10 shots.
Right.
When you think about it, that's usually about the average. But Caulfield's a little bit better than the average shooter. So that makes sense.
Yeah. If it makes you feel any better, Slavkovsky's at 30% right now. So
well, the good news is that was the second game of his suspension.
Yeah. It'll be nice to have him
so now he can come back. Yeah. Yes, it will. And I know it was nice to have Anderson back in that game.
Absolutely. We'll get into him a little bit later on, a little bit possible some rumors going on there. But starting the game less than 2 minutes in, Anderson just a quick whip on net, and all of a sudden Canadians get a 1-0 lead, and the energy's in the building. Really, you look at the game, and it was another one of the it was another display of not giving up by the Canadians roster. And other than those two quick goals, one going in off the stick of Evans, the other one bouncing off of a ref and then leading to a goal. Right after that, like when the third period started, it was go time, and it was, you score on me, I score on you. You score on me, I score on you. And there was some questionable calls on both sides. There was another one against Savard, unfortunately, for another one of those pushes that led to a trip. And he was animated again, not as animated as he was the other night where he got the misconduct. But both teams in that game had some reason to swear, let's just say that. And I know that I swore quite a few times in that game. Usually when the Penguins took a lead, but it was another one of those games though. The big guys came to play in Suzuki and Caulfield. Kirby Doc had another great game. He had a good pass to Hoffman for the game winner through Jeff Petrie, which I don't know how that puck made it through, but thankfully it did.
It's Jeff Petrie.
Yeah,
It would find a way.
that's right. Um, but we also saw some other guys. You mentioned Anderson. He got on the scoreboard. Monahan scoring the power play goal there with just under five or just over 5 minutes to go off of the initial shot from Drouin. Um, I'm liking what I'm seeing. I'm liking the no quit attitude that this team has. I'm liking that this young team and this rookie captain. Some people were saying he's too young, he's too inexperienced, etc. Can't lead this team. You got Martin St. Louis, who never been a coach, and all of a sudden he comes in, and what's he going to be able to do? You've got all these mismatched pieces. Well, they're turning heads right now, and if the playoffs started right now, they'd be in a wild card spot.
Yeah, and that's not exactly where people expected them to be. And I
And
don't think
and a
that
lot of
that's
people
where they're
don't
going to
want
end up.
and a lot of people don't want them to be there.
And I can understand that. I truly can. But I do feel like this team's going to regress to the mean a bit. They are outperforming what we expected from them, and there's still a lot of warts to this roster. And it's not like they're not putting in the effort. Like you mentioned, St. Louis has got these guys. Really, there's no quit in this team, which honestly I truly love seeing, because that right there is going to have a much larger impact on the long-term viability of a contending team,
Right.
versus tanking out and getting either a Bedard or a Fantilli. Like the difference between Bedard and some of the other top 10 prospects wide as some people would hope or think. And because of that no quit attitude, that never give up, that constant work ethic, that coupled with a high end prospect makes up for getting that versus just a Bedard.
Right. And remember, fans, as you're watching this season, always boo the Panthers, because we want them to lose. We want a high first round pick. I don't know if it's going to happen, but even another pick in the top 20, I would take it any day. You get two first round picks, take two first round picks in the top 20. Maybe you use your highest and you flip your second.
Yeah, if the Canadians end up with two high end picks in the top, let's say top 10 and then top 20,
right,
they're going to be well set up. And that's not to say that they won't have other picks and prospects coming as the trade deadline approaches. But for now,
right. Well, look what they did this year, right? Look what they did this year with Slavkovsky, Messer, and then they flipped their other one that they acquired to get Kirby Dach. So it's looking like it worked out pretty well for them so far.
So far, because Kirby Dach looks like an excellent fit on that top line, but that doesn't mean he's not going to get moved back down to center and continue his apprenticeship there.
Agreed.
For now, that line's working.
Yeah.
For now, so they're not going to touch it. It would make no sense to do that right now, especially with the fact that Dach is also providing secondary scoring when he's not on that line, like in the overtime.
That's right.
Yeah, the Hoffman goal came off of his stick.
Yeah, but the only problem that I'm having right now with the top line, and like it's not necessarily a bad thing, but you look at a whole for this season, and that top line has contributed to 23 goals. Okay, Canadians as a whole have scored 46. So 50% of the goals have come for those three players. And we've seen, Hoffman's on a burner lately. Like, I don't know what's going on with him, but I'm liking it. I'm liking his compete level. I'm liking that he's he's still making some of these weird passes, but I think that he got those first couple and he's playing with more confidence now. And I think that he looks at the lineup that, maybe, just maybe, I'm not going to sit out now. And you're going to look at other players. You're going to look at other players like Pizzetta, Drouin, Dadnov, etc., that might sit on the bench now because I'm playing a little bit with a little bit more panaz. Let's just say that.
I think that with Hoffman, St. Louis has given him a lot of leeway through the season.
Very much
And
so.
what we're seeing, yeah. And what we're seeing from him now are people are going to overlook the warts in his game because he's producing goals.
Yeah.
He's not playing any different now than he did in game 1, 2, 3. Every game is in the same. He's up against the same level of competition on a regular basis. The matchups are kept the same. He's up against the bottom 6 a lot. And his underlying numbers are very, very good. The difference being that those giveaways that he had in the other games when he wasn't producing, that sometimes led to goals, really stood out because he wasn't producing any goals from the other end. So he was a minus versus an even or a plus.
Agreed. Yeah.
So for now, everyone's happy because he's a bit of a plus, but his game has not changed whatsoever. And the second someone calls Hughes up to take Hoffman off his hands, I hope to Christ he takes him up on it. You want a bag of pucks? Done. Yeah. Here you go. Take the contract. Because in all seriousness, as much as Hoffman's play in the last week has really looked a lot better, like I said, he hasn't really changed. He's just producing now.
Yeah.
What the Canadians gain is that $4.5 million in cap space plus a roster position that a young guy can be called up to. So, that Ren Pitlick wouldn't have had to have been sent down. He could have stayed with the Canadians. Pezzetta could get more ice time. Hell, they could call up Jesse Alonen, who has earned NHL time.
Right.
And that would go a longer way in the long-term development of the team. So I'm glad he's doing that. I'm hoping that he convinces a GM somewhere to take him on. But in this game against the Penguins, he played the hero.
Yeah.
And that he can't take that away from him. He played his game his way and it worked out. And you look at the amount of ice time that he didn't have a lot. He only had 14:22 of total ice. I mean, Monahan had 17:22. Evans had more ice time than Hoffman did, which makes sense. Anderson, however, had less ice time than Hoffman, and that's because Anderson doesn't do power play.
That's right.
Just straight on 5-on-5.
Yeah. Another take out of this game, I thought it was one of Jordan Harris's weaker games.
Which would explain why he had less than 15 minutes of ice time.
I found that the goal that was scored, like it was weird because everything it was going to be like a 3-on-3, and then the Canadians were going to get a 4-on-3, and like obviously it's like the weirdest shit that happened. Not in overtime. But just the little pinch that he made, up into the he kind of jumped the gun off the face-off, thinking that maybe that he would be able to get possession for the team. But the way that I looked at it is, you got a power play coming. Maybe your power play is not the greatest, but at least you've got a power play coming. Maybe not make that jump, because then it was a 2-on-1 the other way, and McGinn potted a goal on it, right? So I know that, yes, the Canadians scored 40 seconds later, but what if they hadn't, right? So that would have really been, one of those things you could have looked back on and said, there you go. That's why they lost the game. But this is one of the first times that I've talked negative about Jordan Harris, because he does play a well-rounded 200-foot game. And usually when we're not talking about somebody, it's probably, and you're a defenseman, you're probably doing your job correctly.
It's the first time all season that Harris has had any real problems. So consider he's a rookie. We're already 15 games in the season. This is the first time he's had some real difficulties. And it's against a very, very well-constructed veteran team whose window is still kind of open. So you're going up against Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Chris Letang. Yeah, sometimes you're going to have a bad game, and
Right.
it just makes it worse when you're going up against guys like this.
Yeah. But they did Crosby didn't get a point in the game though, and he was a -2.
And who was the defenseman that they were using as a matchup with him again? I think his name rhymes with Uli.
He's continued to impress. He has looked so good. He popped 2 assists in that game, and like, ladies and gentlemen, like, this kid is just getting better. He really is, and I knew that they had a good player when they picked him. He went and played at the juniors, looked very good there, and it was just a matter of time. You know, he was the WHL playoff MVP, and yeah, the guy who's just getting better. And we talked about this a bit in our last show. Like, he's outperforming on a line with a guy that's playing out of position in Savard, who's not a top pairing guy. And it'll be interesting to see. I think that line's going to stay together. I think it'd be a little bit silly to break it up now, but with Matheson coming back, and he's still skating with a non-contact jersey at the moment, but with right now, you look at him and keep that line together. But do you put Matheson with Jack-Eye, or do you put Matheson with Edmondson?
If I were the coach, and I'm clearly not because I'm in my basement doing a podcast, if I were, I would try to keep the Savard Gouli pairing together.
Yeah.
I would move them down to a second pairing role, which would help Savard, who, despite the fact that he's put in a lot of good, strong hockey, is still a little bit out of his depth on that top line.
Right.
So throwing Edmondson, who, by the way, had a very solid game against the Penguins. That, I think that was his third game in a row where he really started to look like he's comfortable again. You put Matheson and Edmondson together, who Edmondson can play on the right side. They can take that top line or that top pairing role. Gouli and Savard playing in that second pair would look even better, especially Gouli, who shut down Crosby and put up points,
right,
while putting up the second most amount of ice time on the team behind Nick Suzuki.
Right.
And he's doing so on a regular basis. So
that would leave Harris with Jack-Eye or Kovacevic given the game. And then you've still got Wideman there as well. So obviously they're going to have to make a roster spot available. And that's when it's going to be a little bit interesting to see who goes down. Is there going to be a deal made, etc.?
I mean, they could make a trade, but the more likely thing to happen would be they would keep Kovacevic and Wideman on the roster, because they can go back and forth, interchange with each other. Wideman being that veteran who knows his role, Kovacevic, who's just showed up on waivers. They don't want to take the chance of losing him on waivers now that he's passed the number of games and days and all that. So they have to put him on waivers again and would lose him. More than likely, they'd have to pick between keeping Jack-Eye or Harris on the roster. And as much as I like Harris's overall game, and I think that he's going to be the better defenseman in the long run, right now, Jack-Eye has done more.
Yeah.
He's shown more.
Yeah.
He's getting more shots on net. He's physical. He is strong defensively. He's doing all those little, for the most part, but he's adding that dimension of producing a lot of pucks to the net.
Right. So what I like about Harris's game, we'll just do a little quick comparison. I like how he can move the puck. Obviously but Jack-Eye can still move the puck pretty damn well for a big man. I like the physicality that Jack-Eye brings, yet Harris is very good at getting into the lanes, blocking shots using a stick. Right? Being a disruptor more strategically as opposed to physically. Right? But like when you hear about the Canadians' young players, it's usually Gooley Jackeye when it comes to the back end. And yes, we know the Harris is there, and as you said, he might end up being the better defenseman down the road. But I would agree with you, if they don't move a guy out like Harris to go down to Laval, then sorry about that. That they send a guy, they either make a trade or they send somebody else down, then maybe Harris would be the logical choice. Because I am liking the overall game of Jackeye being that that physical deterrent, and obviously they like him enough that they're giving him second power play time.
Yeah, and it's one of those happy little problems that the Canadians now have. It's something that before the season started, nobody expected that they would have. Now, in this last game against the Penguins, Jackeye had over 18 minutes. He had 4 shots on net. He had 4 hits. He was mobile. He was doing all the little things that he needed to do. And then you look at guys like Monahan, Dvorak, Evans. They were winning the majority of their faceoffs. Now, Suzuki had a hard time in the faceoff circle in that game.
He did,
despite the fact that he led the team in ice time. I think he was under 30%.
It was pretty low. Yeah, it was pretty low.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Monahan, Dvorak, and Evans were just lighting up the faceoff dot. Yeah. They were winning almost all their faceoffs. So it evened out. But those little things, that's where the Canadians ended up winning this game. Yeah. Is that their depth players were able to step up. So, we'll talk a little bit about a trade rumors at this point. We will and we're back. For those who are live, I hope you enjoyed that wonderful commercial. But yeah, so before we jump into the trade rumors, I think the coaching needs to be addressed as well. A big reason why the Canadians are doing so friggin' well, is St. Louis. I mean, he's I know he doesn't have a lot of experience. You mentioned a little bit off the top of the show, but the fact remains that he's enthusiastic. He knows the game.
Yeah.
He likes to allow players to just go out and play.
Yeah. He's the definition of a player's coach.
Because he's a player.
Yeah. But he's 100%. He is 100% for the players, and the players see that in him, and they play that much harder for him because they know that they can go out there, they can make a mistake, and they're not going to get glued to a bench.
That's exactly it. He's letting them go out and make their mistakes. He doesn't care if they make mistakes. Well, he does, but it's the ones that get repeated.
It's not glaring. He's not screaming at guys on the bench. And I said, yes, you might miss a shift type thing, but you're not going to get stapled to it. You're not going to get stapled to a bench for a whole period.
The only time you would probably get his anger is if you're making the same mistake over and over and over.
Right.
But it doesn't seem to be the case with these guys. They're making their mistakes, but it's one-offs, and they're learning from them, and they're evolving their game. And that, I think, is the biggest difference between the Canadians winning 8 games and 47 games played last year versus 8 games and 15 games played this year.
Yeah.
That Absolutely. Right there, I think, is a massive difference between what happened under Ducharme, which some of it was his fault, a lot of it wasn't. It's just situational. It happens. But this approach seems to be coming at the right time with the right group of players.
Right.
Now, that brings us to the trade rumors that are floating around out there. The big one being Josh Anderson.
Yeah.
Now, the Flames, according to Elliot Friedman, are in hard on him right now. There's been some talks. They've wanted him in the past. Take for Treliving to get Anderson out of the Canadiens and into a Flames jersey.
You said that one more time. You cut out there for a second.
Oh, sorry. What do you think it would take for Treliving to get Anderson into a Flames jersey?
It would have to be one of those, I can't not accept this trade type deals. Like, it would have to start with a top prospect 100%. And Hughes has already kind of come out and said that he doesn't want to take on salary just to move out of contract. And I don't think with in the case of Anderson, he's still a very useful player. I don't think that you move out a player like him to take on a contract like that. But I said it would have to start somewhere high with like a Peltier or a Zary or something like that. It would have to at least start with something like that. I don't find the need, or I don't find the need to move this player. I'll just throw that out there. The need is not there. The Canadians have looked for many years to get a player like Anderson. They have him now. And teams want a player like him. And yes, does he get injured every now and then? Yes, he does. But that's the kind of game that he plays, and he's a guy that you want to have on your team when you're playing the big game, like when you're going into the playoffs and everything, because he's going to bring that energy to the lineup.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I think this is a guy that you want to have in the lineup so that he can take on those harder minutes at the 5-on-5 level and go up against the bigger defenders and soften them up a little bit, create some space for his line mates by playing his physical style and north-south style.
Right.
Which is exactly why the Flames would want him, because he fits into Sutter's style of play.
Yeah.
But like you said, Hughes doesn't have to make a move.
No.
At all. So you either wow him or you wait, because while I agree that Anderson at 28 years of age, probably not fitting in with the core long term, Hughes still has the option of time. It'd be much easier to make a deal for the return that he would want in the summertime.
Yeah.
Something during the season means having to take on cap, which means in the Flames case, getting Lucic to waive his no move or his no trade clause and go to the Canadiens, because their contracts are about the same. So, one, do you really think anybody in Montreal wants him there?
No, I wouldn't think so. And the thing is, I personally don't think he would waive to go to Montreal. He's on his last year of his deal, and Calgary more than likely has a better chance at a playoff run than the Canadians do, especially if they can get
playoffs
right
at this point.
Yeah, if they can get everyone rolling. And we know where these rumors are coming from. It's because Calgary was supposed to be the powerhouse team coming out of the West, and so far they've either looked good or they've looked awful. And in the last little bit, they've really been dragging their heels and they haven't been playing well. When you have a team that has Jonathan Huberdeau on it, okay, he's put up 6 points in 11 games. He's currently injured, but 6 points in 11 games, and he's only scored 1 goal. Andrew Mangiapane, a guy that put up 35 last year, has only got 2 goals in 14 games. Like, it's their lack of scoring. It's not like they don't have the guys on their team that can score. Mangiapane put up 35 goals and 55 points last year. Fucking Huberdeau scored 30 and put up 100 plus points last year. It's just, they're not, whatever they're doing, like, it's not like there has been huge change, other than, well, you can say huge change for that franchise with Goudreau leaving, and with Tkachuk leaving, but you still brought in some very good players to replace them in Nazem Kadri, Huberdeau, and then they also brought in Mackenzie Weegar, who so far only has 4 points after putting up 45 to 50 last year with the Florida Panthers and signing a big contract extension.
Well, I think it's a lot to do with they've had a lot of turnover from last year to this year. The guys are still trying to build that chemistry. But the Flames still have world-class goaltender
They do.
in Markstrom.
They do.
They still have
he hasn't been there this year, right? He hasn't been the guy this year.
yet.
And we can say the same thing if we want to talk about goaltending really quick. You say the same thing about Demko in Vancouver. Another guy that's a very top tier goalie, just hasn't been there this year.
Absolutely. 100% true. And so Markstrom's there. He's a world-class goaltender who hasn't really gotten to a stride yet this season. I have every expectation that he will.
Yep.
The Flames still have one of, if not the best overall blue lines in the league.
They got a good decor. Yeah.
Good goaltending. And you look at their forward group, they've got a couple of really big names who've put up some big numbers over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
But it's the depth portion that they're kind of missing. It just, Dubé hasn't stepped up. They need a little bit of help on that top nine. And that's why I think
the thing is, if you look
Anderson would be their target.
But if you look at their team though, and then you look at the Canadians, right? They've got
which one should be better.
I'll just name off a few players off of Hockey Reference. Yeah, Nazem Kadri's at 7 goals. Elias Lindholm has 5, and Elias Lindholm is a sneaky good player. Nobody really, a lot of people look at him and they don't realize how good this guy is. Tyler Toffoli, ex-Canadian, he's got 5 goals. Michael Backlund's got 5 goals. Huberdeau, as I mentioned earlier, has only got the 1. Mangiapane's only got 2. Blake Coleman's only got 1. Dylan Dubé's only got 1, right? The aforementioned Milan Lucic, 0 and 14 with 3 assists.
Well, that's expected,
right? But as I said, people are going to be quick to say, let's give up Josh Anderson. Let's do this. Let's do this. I wouldn't give it up just to do a team a favor at this point. I really wouldn't. Like, yes,
right now the Canadians hold the Flames 2024 first pick.
Maybe
if the Flames were to offer up the 2023 or 2025 or 2027, I don't know. It depends on
you have to look at the matrix and how that works.
Yeah. So let's just pretend like it'll be 2024.
All right.
For argument's sake. So that still leaves the 2023 pick out there.
Yeah.
And it's a pick that, well, in a year that Hughes has said he wants another first round pick.
Yeah.
So if they offer that, I think that would be an excellent basis for any deal. Like that would have to be that's a shoe-in. It must be included, or I don't think Hughes says yes to anything.
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah. Because it would either be that or you're starting with a top end prospect.
Yeah. Yeah, because you definitely have to take back salary either way.
Yeah.
And with a Lucic, if he were to ever waive, at least his contract's in the final year and you can walk away.
Yeah. Because I look up and down their roster, and most of their players are still signed into next year plus. Like Mangiapane's still 3 years at 5.8. Huberdeau, 5.9, then going to 10.5. And obviously he ain't going anywhere. Kadri's there for 7 years at $7 million. Coleman's still there at 4.9 for 5 more years, right? Lindholm at 4.8 for 2 more years, etc. Right? So there's nobody that you can really look at other than Lucic to say, hey, we'll take this guy off your hands as a cap dump. But
yeah, exactly.
As of right now, the player in Lucic, he ultimately just decides what he wants to do, because he has a modified no trade, and there's only 10 teams he can be traded to, and that's a list that he'll provide to the team.
Yeah. And this is why I think this is going to be something that happens in the summer versus by trade deadline,
Right.
because you're looking at it and you're thinking from Hughes's point of view, it's not quite what you'd be looking for a player like Anderson.
Right.
And if you're looking at it from Treliving's point of view, do I want to give up all that before going on a long, trying to make a long playoff run? Or do I give one of those young guys that I would trade away anyway a chance to increase their value by playing in the NHL a little bit?
Right. And there's been a lot of trade talk about a guy like Dvorak or a guy like
Yes.
even Monahan.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think it's going to really depend on what's going to happen with Doc at this point, because Doc is he's done well on the wing. He still has that play, like he's still got that playmaking side of him. He carries the puck really well. He just can't win a faceoff to save his life. Which, you know, when you're looking at more than likely that he's going to be the 2C, puck possession is a big thing. If you want to have him on there on a power play, etc., either running a second unit or being a secondary option, let's just say that to Suzuki on a power play, you want to be able to have puck possession. You want to be able to shore up those numbers. If it happens that they keep him as a winger, and do
Yeah.
you
Well,
right do you look at in the off season, do you look at getting another, do you go out there and you get an actual 2C?
see, this is where everything gets iffy. What if? What if? What if?
Yeah.
But let's assume that Doc stays on that top line.
Yeah.
Let's assume that Doc becomes a top six winger, vice top six center.
Right.
You still have Dvorak who can fill in that second line role. They, depending on where they draft, they could end up drafting a kid that, you know, in the say the top 10 or 12. There's a ton of centers in there that'll end up being top six centers.
Right.
So if you get one of them, it's not that big of a deal. Beck is still in the system, and he's a year, maybe two away from becoming a top nine center. So your depth at center isn't as bad as it would seem. And Monahan, the way he's been playing, could possibly be your one real tick. So I would hesitate to move Monahan and keep Dvorak.
Right.
Dvorak's contract is reasonable for, and he wins faceoffs. He could produce a little bit more, but he eats up a lot of those heavier minutes, and he can support guys like Suzuki, and Evans is there. They've got options at center. That's
Right.
I think that would be an idealistic way to go at it if they wanted that first pick.
As of right now, like before we move on, I'll just still throw it out there. I own an Anderson jersey. I don't want him to go anywhere.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I like the guy. It's having Slavkovsky in the depth chart, though. It kind of softens the blow if you have to move an Anderson, because you have another power forward coming up.
Yeah.
That's why I'm thinking again, that's more of a summer issue, because then it gives Slavkovsky a little bit more time.
It's also
gives
going to
everybody
give
more time.
Right. And it's going to give teams that you know, have some deeper pockets the opportunity to put a package together. And we've seen a few teams really stumble that shouldn't be, possibly one like Vancouver, the other one being St. Louis, that are going to have to do some soul searching and really find out what they want to be as a team and who's going to move out in the off season.
Yeah, and it also gives teams a little bit of an opportunity if the cap goes up, you know, and some of these contracts are, you know, expire on their team or whatever. It gives a little bit more cap leeway to teams to take on Anderson's contract.
Right.
All right, so we're going to move on from the Anderson trade rumors, and we'll go into previewing the New Jersey Devils game on Tuesday night. And we will do so right after these messages. And we're back. For those on the live, I hope you enjoyed that commercial break. I felt it was a very special break.
I think so.
I truly enjoyed that one. All right, so the Canadians are going to be up against the New Jersey Devils on Tuesday night, November 15th. And the Devils are on a tear.
They are.
They've had a couple of weeks in a row where they've gone 3-0. They're steamrolling opposition now.
They are. After starting the year 0-2, they've now won 12 of the last 13. And it's went from opening night, their coach getting booed, to everyone saying sorry, Lindy, at the last game, where Ruff laughed that off at the press conference after another win. But they've as you said, they've been on an absolute tear. They're scoring goals in bunches. They're sixth in the league in goal scoring, and they're fifth in goals against. So they're not letting up a lot, and they're scoring quite a bit. And for a middle of the pack Canadians team, this is going to be quite a matchup. This is going to be a surprising matchup. Because you look at the Devils and you don't think to yourself, oh, we're playing Boston, or we're playing Colorado, or we're playing one of these other top tier teams. But the Devils are having a lot of success, and a lot of people are talking about them. And these young players are really starting to click, and they're well coached with Lindy Ruff there. They've also got Andrew Burnett there, so you get a guy that's a Jack Adams finalist as a assistant coach. You bounce some ideas off each other, and so far, with 12-3 record, it's really working out for them.
Yeah, they got the whole "Sorry Lindy" T-shirts going now, and that
Yeah,
which I like that. I think it's a nice gesture by this fan base to say, "Hey, sorry, we overreacted a little bit."
yeah,
Um,
and we got to
but
remember.
the Devils.
Sorry, we got to remember they're still without Blackwood, who's arguably their best goalie, and they're without Andre Palat, which was like their big acquisition during free agency.
Yeah, exactly. And I think missing Palat is where that's a soft spot in the Devils' underbelly right now. Their power play isn't very good at the moment, and their third line isn't really producing. And I think that has a direct correlation to the loss of Palat.
Right.
Had he been in there, that power play would be clicking at a much higher rate, and that third line would be rolling. So you have a team that's already they're not the Devils of old. They're a fast-paced team that loves to play wide open offense.
Right.
And then you throw that in, and now you got a power play that's clicking. You got a third line with say Palat and Mercer, who are keying off each other. And that type of depth with the way that they're playing, you're looking at a playoff team that could cause some problems in the Metro Division.
Yeah.
Now, for the game against the Canadians, the Habs are going to be in tough, because Nico Hischier's playing lights out hockey right now, and I know he gets crapped on. He's not really a number one center. Eats a ton of minutes, can play any style of hockey you need. He's a leader. That's the kind of player that every single team needs in their top six.
Yeah.
And you've got Jack Hughes playing behind him, who doesn't need to eat up all those heavy minutes, because Hischier's doing that heavy lifting, which opens up Hughes for a more offensive role, which is ideal. So it's a scary good team. Now, if the Canadians can find a way to kind of trip up the New Jersey offense, especially with Hischier's top line, and play a disciplined style of hockey, so they're not taking a lot of power plays or a lot of penalties, the Canadians' penalty killing unit would be able to shut down whatever really shows up. And without their top line, I think the Canadians have a chance at stopping the New Jersey Devil streak.
Yeah, I do too. I really do. I think that they could definitely play spoiler. We saw how the Canadians played just the other night against the Penguins, where you've got a lot of depth at center, where you've got Malkin, you've got Crosby, you've got Carter, etc. And yes, as you mentioned, they've got Nico Heischer, they got Jack Hughes, they have Jesper Brad, who's another guy that's just been on an absolute tear. Kind of came out of nowhere
Absolutely.
last year, put up 70 plus points, and right now is leading his team in points with, I believe, 19 or 20.
And he's
Um,
looking for a new contract.
right. Yes, he is. And like even Thomas Tatar, former Canadian, he's put up 11 points so far
Who?
in the
Who?
yeah. All right. Put up the 11 points in 15 games so far. But I do believe that they do have an opportunity to break this streak. And it really comes down to if they're able to shut down that line, stay out of the box a little bit, not give a guy like a Dougie Hamilton the opportunity to take a big, slap shot on the power play type thing, who's looked very good after missing a good part of the last year with an injury. He's put up 12 points so far this year. It's going to really come down to who wants it more, and it's hard to say who's going to get the starts. If they're going to give Allen a little bit of a break and put Montembeault in there, who just surprising everyone is playing some pretty good hockey, and he's not looking like Montembeault last year, that's for sure. But we're probably going to see a Vitek Vanacek against the Canadians. We might see Schmid play. There's a chance there that he will, as Blackwood's still going to be out with an injury. But I would assume we're going to get their starter. It's gonna be I think it's gonna be a good game. It's gonna be fun to watch. And it's also going to be first game with the reverse retro jerseys.
Oh God. And that stupid mascot.
And Metal
Oh,
makes an appearance.
oh.
Yeah, he was like
No,
he was
they tried really hard to make him look like Lemmy from Motorhead, but
yeah.
they completely failed.
Yeah, he was partying hard with Panther the other night, like doing coke off strippers' asses and stuff. No, so no, I don't know about that, but but he
Doing
was
lines over at the Shapery.
oh yeah, so he was partying pretty hard. And you know what? It's something fun that they're trying to do, and
Yeah.
like some
Yeah.
people are against it. You know what I mean? Like, but you know what? It's for the families. It's to get a rise out of people. It's to have a few laughs. Like some people are saying, "Oh, this is a disgrace to this, and it's a disgrace to this, and whatever." And it's like
It's not gritty.
right. It's a mascot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he didn't shoot your grandmother. Like calm down.
Maybe. We don't know.
All
I mean,
right, it's
that's the metal
common. It's common,
lifestyle.
right?
Yeah.
So
But honestly, that mascot, that's the first time the Canadians create their own mascot.
yeah,
Because Yuppie was a transplant from the
right.
Expos.
That's right. That's right.
So this is the Canadians' first attempt at creating a mascot. And I like to pick on mascots because it's fun. But except Yuppie, because he's a god. but I do like the fact that they're trying something. The reverse retro stuff, bringing him out just for that. Okay, I get it. So yeah, it's something fun. It's something different in a season where nothing fun or different was supposed to happen. Hey, let's enjoy it.
Yeah.
But for the game against the Devils, before we wrap up the show, my expectation, and nothing's been announced yet, but my expectation is that Allen will get the start because it's at home.
Yeah.
With the reverse retros, medals there.
Yeah.
You want some representation from New Brunswick, the most metal province there is.
Yeah. And I believe with him just winning the Jean Beliveau trophy.
Yeah.
Right. I think that they're going to want to actually, they might even do like a before game presentation. I know they did one today in Montreal, but they might actually do one and actually honor them there on the ice. So yeah, to be the starter probably would make sense.
And not to mention on Thursday, when the Canadians are going to Columbus, they'll be playing the Blue 32nd in the league.
Right. That makes sense. And they just lost.
So you would want
they just lost
Montembeault
Patrick
there.
Laine. Just lost Laine. You lost Werenski. They're playing a hurting team, so it might be the best thing to do.
Yeah, and then it sets them up to have Allen back in net on Saturday night in Montreal against the Flyers. So it kind of, they got a couple days off in between each game.
Right.
Uh, and the way the schedule works out this week, it just makes sense to go Allen, Montembeault, Allen.
Right. Yeah, I'd be okay with that.
Yeah. Now, before we cut it out, is there any final thoughts that you want to share?
Two things. First, Canadians based. Slavkovsky is going to be coming back from his suspension. Who comes out of the lineup for him?
Oh,
And
that's a tough
tell
one.
me why it isn't Dadonov.
I can't.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? Like Dadonov just hasn't worked out. He's I've tried to be as patient as I can with him, but when you put up 0 points in the games that you've played, and I believe he's played 11 games now. He's only taken 13 shots. He's a -4. He's hit one thing. I don't know what it was, but he hit one person and he's blocked 3 shots and he's averaging 13.27 right now. And it just hasn't worked out. And when we talk about Matheson coming back, part of me just wants to chuck this guy on waivers, but that it's going to kill any opportunity or any chance that this guy's going to fetch anything at the trade deadline. And I think that's really what they're looking for. But 11 games into the season, you haven't put up a point, even though you've played on the second line, you've played, you've got some minutes, you've got some power play time, etc. It just hasn't worked out. And Slavkovsky is really your future, and you've got to give this guy that opportunity. Drouin's still not all there, but I'm liking what I'm seeing a little bit more from his game. So yeah, he's got to sit. And my last thing that I want to bring up, big stick tap to the Toronto Maple Leafs for their yeah, I'm saying something nice about the Leafs. It was really classy what they did with Salming, and bringing him out, and it was a really quite a moment in the league this year. The images with him and Sittler, and the fact that they started an all Swedish line to start the game to kind of play homage to him and everything. I think it was a really classy
Swedish
gesture.
line.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
thought it was a really classy gesture by them, and very good job. And the one that stole the show, though, the guy that stole the show was the veteran in the wheelchair during the Remembrance Day game. And as soon as the camera was on him, he was waving to the crowd, and he just lit up the crowd. And the more he waved, the more they cheered. And very good on the organization for doing that. And that's probably the only time I'm going to talk good about the Leafs. So offside,
Well, to be fair,
if you're listening,
yeah.
offside, James, it's the only time I'm going to say something nice.
Yeah, and it was very nice. So that leaves me open to say this: having the veteran there is the first time any Maple Leaf fan has seen an actual hero on the ice.
Ooh,
yes.
Yeah.
Anyways, so that I don't have anything else. I just wanted to thank everyone for tuning in, watching us live, watching us later on, listening in, all the well wishes, all the emails, the comments that we've been getting. We really appreciate that. I want a special thank you to Crier Media for taking us on, and hopefully this collaboration makes the show better for all of you listening. So far, so good. I mean, we're already out one Treg, so there's actual space in the frame for all of us now, because it was just Treg's muscles that were eating up all the space.
It was all lads. It was all lads.
So I want to thank everyone for listening, and remember, if you're talking about it, so are we. And that's it for the recording. We are still on the live. I want to thank everyone for tuning in live. Mom, thanks for checking us out. I know you were probably looking for a different thing on Facebook, and here it was. So, but everyone watching, thanks again.